Over 1,300 red wine varieties exist, and most people only know 3. The real stories behind the ones they're missing are absolutely insane. One banned by royal decree, one found hiding on the wrong continent for 100 years. Let's start with the grape that's broken more winemakers than any other on earth. First up is Pinot Noir, the grape that's broken more winemakers than any other on earth. Pinot Noir comes from Burgundy in eastern France, with the first written mention dating back to 1345. The name comes from the French words for pine and black, because the tightly packed clusters look like little black pine cones. The wine's pale, silky, and high in acid, with cherry, raspberry, and forest floor notes. But here's a fact most wine guides skip. Pinot Noir is so genetically unstable that over 40 different mutations of it exist, and each one tastes slightly different. Legendary California winemaker Andrei Chelyschev once said, "God made Cabernet Sauvignon, whereas the devil made Pinot Noir. It cracks easily, rots in damp weather, and refuses to ripen if anything goes wrong." That's why bottles from the tiny Domaine de la Romanée Conti vineyard in Burgundy regularly sell for over $20,000 each. The grape's also one of only 2 reds allowed in real champagne, and it's the genetic parent of Chardonnay, Gamay, and Aligoté. But Gamay deserves its own moment, because it's got the wildest backstory in France. Now we slide into Gamay, the grape a French duke literally outlawed. Gamay grows mostly in Beaujolais, just south of Burgundy, and it's a natural cross between Pinot Noir and an obscure grape called Gouais Blanc. The wine's light, juicy, low in tannin, and packed with strawberry, cranberry, and violet. But here's the wild part. In July 1395, the Duke of Burgundy, Philip the Bold, issued a royal decree banning Gamay completely. He called it a very bad and very unfaithful plant that produced wine full of great and horrible bitterness. He ordered every Gamay vine ripped out within 5 months. The real reason wasn't taste, though. It was money. Gamay grew faster and produced way more wine than Pinot Noir, threatening Burgundy's premium reputation. So the grape got exiled south to Beaujolais, where the granite soils suited it perfectly. Today, every 3rd Thursday of November, the world celebrates Beaujolais Nouveau, a fresh Gamay drink just weeks after harvest. Now we cross into Italy for a grape with a name straight out of mythology. And that brings us to Sangiovese, the blood of Jupiter. Sangiovese is the most planted grape in all of Italy, and it's the heart of Chianti, Brunello di Montalcino, and Vino Nobile di Montepulciano. The name likely comes from the Latin sanguis Jovis, which translates to blood of Jove, referring to the Roman god Jupiter. Legend says monks in Sant'Arcangelo di Romagna coined it. DNA profiling done in 2004 at San Michele al Adige finally cracked the parentage, revealing Sangiovese is a cross between Ciliegaiolo from Tuscany and Calabrese Montenuovo from southern Italy. The wine's medium-bodied with screaming acidity, firm tannins, and signature flavors of sour cherry, dried herbs, and tomato leaf. The classic Chianti recipe was formulated in the 1870s by Baron Bettino Ricasoli, who later became Prime Minister of Italy. Today, Chianti must be at least 75% Sangiovese, and Brunello di Montalcino has to be 100%. There are over 100 officially registered Sangiovese clones, more than any other Italian variety. But Spain's about to take the spotlight. Let's head to Spain for Tempranillo, the grape that means the early one. Tempranillo is Spain's flagship red and the 4th most planted wine grape in the world. Spain grows about 87% of all the Tempranillo on Earth. The name comes from the Spanish word temprano, meaning early, because this grape ripens about 2 weeks before most other Spanish reds. It's the backbone of Rioja, where it's typically blended with Garnacha, Masuelo, and Graciano. DNA testing in 2012 finally cracked Tempranillo's parentage, revealing it's a natural cross between Albilo Mayer and a nearly forgotten variety called Benedicto. Rioja gets classified by aging time. Crianza is 1 year in barrel, Reserva 3 years total, and Gran Reserva at least 5. The wine's medium-bodied with cherry fig, leather, and tobacco notes. But for raw power and warm climate hedonism, you need to head to the Mediterranean. Number 5 on our list is Grenache, also known as Garnacha, the heatwave grape. Grenache most likely originated in the Aragon region of northern Spain. It later spread across the Mediterranean as the Crown of Aragon expanded into Italy and southern France. The grape needs serious heat and drought to thrive, which is why you'll find it in Spain's Prioras, France's Châteauneuf-du-Pape, Italy's Sardinia, where it's called Canonneau, and across Australia's McLaren Vale. Grenache wines are famously high in alcohol, often hitting 15% or more, with raspberry, strawberry, and white pepper notes. Châteauneuf-du-Pape, finalized as an appellation in 1936, allows up to 18 different grape varieties in the blend, but Grenache is almost always the dominant one. It also forms the G in classic GSM blends alongside Syrah and Mourvèdre. The catch with Grenache is oxidation. Even young bottles can show a brick orange tint at the rim because the pigments break down fast. Now we cross into Bordeaux. Let's talk about Merlot, the blackbird grape that one Hollywood movie almost killed. Merlot's the most planted grape in Bordeaux, and the second most planted red wine grape in the entire world. The name comes from merle, the French word for blackbird, because the grape is blue-black like the bird's feathers. DNA research at UC Davis revealed Merlot's a child of Cabernet Franc and a nearly extinct grape called Magdeleine Noir de Charente, which makes it a half-sibling to Cabernet Sauvignon. The wine's plush, fruit-forward, with plum, cherry, and chocolate notes. It's the soul of Chateau Petrus, the most expensive single-varietal Merlot on Earth, where bottles routinely sell for thousands. But here's the part that still stings. In 2004, the movie Sideways came out, and Paul Giamatti's character ranted about hating Merlot. Sales in the western US dropped nearly 2% almost overnight, while Pinot Noir sales jumped 16%. The irony? The most prized bottle Giamatti's character secretly drinks at the end of the film is Chateau Cheval Blanc, a Bordeaux blend that contains a heavy dose of Merlot. Let's get into Zinfandel, the all-American grape that's actually Croatian. For decades, Zinfandel was treated as California's signature grape, the one that built the state's wine industry after the gold rush. By the late 1800s, it was the most planted grape in California. But nobody could figure out where it actually came from. In 2001, after a multi-year DNA hunt led by UC Davis grape geneticist Carol Meredith, the answer surfaced. Zinfandel's genetically identical to Kroljenak Kaštelanski, an ancient grape from the Dalmatian coast of Croatia. It's also identical to Italy's Primitivo, which Benedictine monks likely brought from Croatia in the 17th century. By the time Meredith's team confirmed the match, only 22 surviving Kroljenak vines remained in all of Croatia. The wine's bold and high in alcohol, with blackberry jam, black pepper, and smoked meat. There's also white Zinfandel, the sweet pink stuff invented by accident at Sutter Home in 1972, which ironically saved a lot of California's old vines from getting torn out. Number 8 is Malbec, the grape that France abandoned and Argentina turned into gold. Malbec was once one of the 6 noble red grapes of Bordeaux, then disaster struck. In February 1956, a brutal frost wiped out about 75% of the Malbec vines in Bordeaux. Most growers replanted with Merlot or Cabernet, and Malbec got pushed to a small region called Cahors, where they call it Côte, and where the wines are so dark they're nicknamed the Black Wine of France. But Malbec's real second life started in the mid-1850s. A French agronomist named Michel Puget brought cuttings to Argentina at the request of the governor of Mendoza. The high-altitude desert climate, with its hot days and freezing nights, turned out to be perfect. Today, Argentina has roughly 85% of the world's Malbec, with over 40,000 hectares planted mostly in Mendoza. Their high-altitude vineyards in Salta and the Uco Valley sit at over a mile above sea level. April 17th is officially Malbec World Day. Now, we get to one of the most insane comeback stories in wine. And that brings us to Carmenere, the lost Bordeaux grape that hid in Chile for over a century. Carmenere was originally one of the 6 noble Bordeaux red grapes. Then in the 1860s, the phylloxera plague wiped out almost every vineyard in Europe, and Carmenere got hit especially hard. By the late 20th century, it was assumed extinct in France. But here's where the story gets crazy. In November 1994, a French ampelographer named Jean-Michel Boursicot was visiting vineyards in Chile's Maipo Valley when he noticed something off about the Merlot vines. He examined the flower stamens, spotted a tiny twisted detail, and realized he was looking at the long-lost Carmenere, which had been mistakenly imported from Bordeaux back in the 1850s and grown as Merlot for over 100 years. The name comes from carmine, French for crimson, because the leaves turn bright red in autumn. The wine has plummy fruit, soft tannins, and signature notes of green peppercorn and bell pepper. From a lost prince of Bordeaux, we move to its undisputed king. The Cabernet Sauvignon is the king of red grapes. Cabernet Sauvignon's the most planted wine grape in the world. It's the powerhouse of Bordeaux's left bank and the foundation of Napa Valley's reputation. But it wasn't always seen as ancient nobility. In 1996, geneticist Carol Meredith at UC Davis used DNA fingerprinting to discover that Cabernet Sauvignon's actually a young grape, born from an accidental natural cross between Cabernet Franc and the white grape Sauvignon Blanc, which probably happened in a Bordeaux vineyard sometime in the 17th century. The wine's full-bodied, deeply tannic, and built to age for decades with black currant, cedar, graphite, mint, and tobacco. The 1976 Judgment of Paris tasting, where Stag's Leap Wine Cellars 1973 Cabernet Sauvignon beat top Bordeaux, including Mouton Rothschild and Haut-Brion, in a blind tasting, completely upended the wine world and turned Napa into the global force it is today. The bottle that won is now in the Smithsonian. From the king of grapes, we head to the most peppery red on earth. Now let's break down Syrah, the grape Australia calls Shiraz. Syrah and Shiraz are exactly the same grape. The name just changes based on where it grows. For centuries, people believed it came from the city of Shiraz in ancient Persia, brought back by crusaders. That whole story turned out to be a myth. In 1998, Carol Meredith's UC Davis team ran DNA testing and proved Syrah's actually French. Born from a natural cross between two obscure grapes called Dureza, a red from the Ardèche, and Mondus Blanche, a white from Savoie. The wine splits into two clear styles based on climate. Northern Rhone Syrah is structured and savory, with intense black pepper and smoked meat notes. That pepper signature comes from a compound called rotundone, and Syrah produces more of it than almost any other grape on earth. Australian Shiraz from the Barossa Valley and McLaren Vale is bigger, riper, with jammy blackberry and chocolate. Penfolds Grange, the country's most legendary Shiraz, was created by Max Schubert in 1951, and bottles regularly sell at auction for thousands. And now Nebbiolo, the king of Italian wine. Nebbiolo grows almost exclusively in Italy's Piedmont region, where it makes Barolo and Barbaresco, two of the most age-worthy red wines in the world. The name comes from nebbia, the Italian word for fog, referring to the thick autumn mists that blanket the Langhe Hills during harvest in late October. The grape's brutal. It buds early, ripens late, and produces wines that can be undrinkable for the first 10 years because the tannins are so aggressive. The first written mention of Nebbiolo dates back to 1268. Until the mid-1800s, Barolo was actually a sweet wine because the late harvest meant fermentation would freeze in cold cellars and leave residual sugar. The mayor of Grinzane-Cavour, Camillo Benso, brought in a French enologist named Louis Oudart, who fixed the cellar techniques and created the first modern dry Barolo. That dry version became the favorite of the ruling House of Savoy, which is why Barolo's still called the wine of kings, the king of wines. The wine world looks simple from a restaurant menu, but every bottle has a story that goes back centuries. Now you know what's actually in your glass. Check out the video on screen now. There's a lot more food history where that came from.